All right, so we are going to talk about composition of functions today. So I'd like you to look on page 1 of your packet, and you'll see this example as number 1. Take notes in your packet, please. You've seen this in Algebra 2 before, but I'm going to go over it. So basically what's going to happen is you're always going to be starting with a series of equations. Maybe you'll have 2 equations, maybe you'll have 3 in this case, okay? And what it wants you to do is compute this, and we read this as f. This parentheses means of g of negative 3. So f of g of negative 3. So what we do is, if you recall, we read backwards. I'm going to start by taking the negative 3, and I'm going to read backwards, and I'm going to plug it into g. So basically, all I'm really doing is I'm finding g of negative 3. So I have my g equation, it's 3x, so I'm going to go 3, and then I'm going to replace that with negative 3. And that's going to give me negative 9. Okay, so what I've just found is this whole thing right here is equivalent to negative 9. Okay, now again, I'm going to go back to my whole concept of reading backwards. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that answer of negative 9 and I'm going to plug it into f. Okay, so let me just kind of re-explain just in case. I'm reading backwards, so I'm doing g of negative 3. Once I get that answer, I plug that answer, which is negative 9, into the f equation. So I'm going to plug negative 9 in here now. Okay, so I am doing f. Oops, let me just use the black. I think I like that. You can see it a little bit better. F of negative 9. So that's 2 times negative 9 plus 1, which is negative 18, plus 1, which is negative 17. So your final answer for f of g of negative 3 is negative 17. And that is your answer for number 1. Make sure you're taking notes. Okay, so let's look at number 3. Why don't you try number 3, pause the video, try number 3, and then unpause and you can check your work. All right, so I'm going to start by finding h of 24. So h of 24. So I'm going to do 24 squared, plus 1. All right, well that ends up being 577. By the way, if you didn't have a calculator, you're not going to get numbers this big, okay? I wouldn't expect you to do something that large. All right, so we know that that is 577. Now I'm going to take that 577 and I'm plugging that into the g equation. So I'm doing g of 577. And that is going to be doing 3 times 577. Now that math you can do without a calculator, but the other math is kind of annoying. So that's 1728. So g of h of 24 equals 1728. Now let me just pause for a moment here because this is kind of important. I kind of overlooked this. This symbol right here is not an O, it's not a 0, it's a composition symbol. It means the same thing as number 1 when we do the double parentheses. Okay, so with number 1 we had the f, then parentheses g, then parentheses negative 3. It's the same thing. So we read this the same way, g of h of 24. Okay, so it's the same concept also where we're reading backwards. We're taking the 24, plugging it into h. Once I get that answer, I'm going to take that answer and I'm going to plug it into g. Okay, just a different way of saying the same thing. You need to know both symbols. So if you're looking at your paper right now, look at number 4 versus number 5. Same thing. I mean, obviously, you know, different letters in different orders and different numbers, but number 4 is f of g of h of 2. 5 is h of g of f of 5. Okay? All right, so let's look at number 9. Now that one's a little bit different now, isn't it? Because we don't have just a number here. We have a variable and a number. Okay, so a binomial. So what I did was I just rewrote the h of x equation, okay? Now look at what they're doing. They're telling you essentially, here's my h of x equation, right? And they're telling you to replace this x with x minus 2. So what that basically means is everywhere I see an x here, I'm going to replace it with x minus 2. So x gets replaced with x minus 2. So this x is going to get replaced with x minus 2. But the square stays, and so does the plus 1. Okay? All right, now, the only thing that they would ask us to probably do in this case is to simplify this. So I'm going to keep going here, and I know that if I have a quantity that's squared, I know that I can write it twice, and then I'm going to double distribute that, and I'll get x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4 plus 1. And then I'm just going to simplify that, and I get x squared minus 4x plus 5. And that's it. Okay, make sure you're writing this down in your notes packet. Okay, turn the page and let's look at number 10. Now, things have changed a little bit here, because if you look at what we don't have a number here. So that's a little bit trickier. Again, you've done this in Algebra 2, but I'm going to go over that with you. So what you're going to do is you're still going to read backwards here. So we're going to do something with this and then read backwards and put an arrow to F. I know that makes no sense, so let me kind of explain. What I want you to do is you're going to take the g of x and circle it. So do that in your notes. And then I want you to draw an arrow to F. Okay, ready? So I'm looking up at the top of the page. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to circle the g of x, and then I am going to plug it into the f of x equation, but watch. Just watch before you take any notes. I'm going to plug it right in there where the x is. So you are taking the entire g of x equation, that is this, and we are plugging it into the f of x, but where the x is. We're replacing this x. So the negative 3 is going to stay. The plus 7 is going to stay. This x is getting kicked out, asta pasta, and this is going in its place. Okay? All right, so watch. So if I want f of g of x, so I'm going to start to write the f of x equation. I see negative 3. Now, you see, I see that x. That's gone. What am I replacing it with? G of x, 2x squared minus 8. And then I write plus 7. Okay, so watch, negative 3x plus 7. I just replace the x with all of g of x instead of with a number. That's all. Okay, and again, like the last one, we're going to simplify this to the best of our ability, okay? So I'm going to distribute that negative 3 through, and that's going to give me negative 6x squared. Then I'm going to get plus 24 plus 7, and one last step, and I get negative 6x squared plus 31. And there's your answer for number 10 rather. All right, so let's look at number 11. There is that little composition notation. This is just like number 10, g of f of x. So just like number 10, we read backwards. So I'm going to circle the f of x, and I'm going to plug it into the g of x. So watch. This time I'm going to circle the f of x, and I'm going to plug it into the g of x, just where the x is only. Okay? All right. So then I am going to write, I'm going to start by writing, here, let me write this first, g of f of x is equal to. So I'm going to start writing that g equation, 2. Now I see an x, so that x is getting replaced with negative 3x plus 7. Close, squared, minus 8. Okay? All right, so let me just double check, make sure we got it. So I just replaced this x. The 2 stays, the squared stays, and the minus 8 stays. just that x is getting replaced with this expression. All right? Now, we got a little bit of math to do here, but you're smart. You can figure this out. So I'm going to do 2, and then I'm going to write negative 3x plus 7 and negative 3x plus 7. Okay, so I'm going to write that twice, and then minus 8. All right, let's do the double distributing before I touch that 2. So I'm going to leave that 2 alone. All right, if I double distribute, I should get a positive 9x squared minus 21x minus another 21x plus 49. And then let's tack on, we're going to close parentheses rather, and then I'm going to tack on that minus 8. Okay? All right, so let's see now. Let's distribute that. Yeah, all right, I'll do it step by step here. So I'm going to do 9x squared, then this will be minus 42x plus 49, and then the minus 8 at the end. So now let me distribute the 2 through. So that's 18x squared minus 84x, and then I am going to multiply 49 times 2. So what is that? 198, right? So that's going to be plus 98 and then minus 8. Okay, last step, 18x squared minus 84x, and then I'm going to have plus 90. And there is your g of f of x. Okay, make sure that you have all of this stuff written in your notes packet.